Evening and welcome to Queer News Tonight, the world's first and only LGBTQ plus daily evening news. It's time to queer up the news. It's 8 p.m. Monday, March 14th, 2022, and we are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. So many of your important stories we're going to tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
This is the world's first live daily LGBTQ evening news show, literally out of the closet and into the headlines on Queer News Tonight with Al Ferguson.
Hello, and thank you for joining Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only unedited live LGBTQ plus evening news show. Whatever happens, you will see it. Queer News Tonight is supported by viewers like you. We are part of the partnership between Happening Out Television Network and Hotspots Magazine. Hotspots is celebrating 36 years of the LGBTQ plus experience. We bring you the best of LGBTQ plus news, entertainment, and support of our community.
I'm your anchor at Queer News Tonight, Al Ferguson. First up, let's welcome anchor FayWhat. She's a radio and television personality and has a popular blog and YouTube channel aiming to unite the L and the G together. She's a hostess and MC for many South Florida events, an animal advocate, and owner of Faye's Fur Family. Also, make sure to catch The FayWhat Show, the first LGBTQ plus morning show, Mondays at 9 a.m. Eastern, online or your smart TV. I watched it this morning, actually. Good evening, Faye.
Good evening, everyone. And I also just want to say a big thank you to the Biltmore Hotel and also Jack Daniel. I was one of the 50 most brillante mujeres de 2022. And we were at that luncheon today, and I felt so super humbled, and I loved it, and it was just wonderful. Lovely. So thank you, everyone that was out there. All right, let's welcome anchor John Hayden. John's been a journalist for 27 years. My age. And now works for several South Florida outlets, including SFGN, covering politics, arts, and the bar scene, mostly for the latest on Happy Hours. He spent much of his career covering the stupidity and scandals of Hollywood and interviewed nearly every big name in TV, movies, and music. John considers the time he had to sit and interview Shirley MacLaine after she yelled at him because he deserved it as one of the scariest 4 minutes of his life. Good evening, John.
I totally deserved it. And
could somebody hand me the bell? It's also a lie detector.
I just am thrilled that you've never known journalism without a John Hayden. That makes me so.
I've never. Was there journalism before John Hayden? I don't know.
think there was. No.
What?
Let's welcome anchor Dr. Julio Capo Jr. He is a history professor and deputy director of the Wolfsonian Public Humanities Lab at FIU. He specializes in the history of race relations and immigration in the United States, as well as LGBTQ plus studies. He is an author of the book, Welcome to Fairyland, Queer Miami Before 1940. And he curated an exhibition called Messages from a Pandemic, AIDS Graphic Communications. Good evening, Doctor.
Hi, I also think there was no journalism before you. And felicidades, Faye. I'm so proud of you and all the great work you do.
I'm sorry, what? What's going on here?
Silence. Let's now welcome anchor Gregg Shapiro, an inductee into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. Gregg is the author of 8 books, including his latest, Fear of Muses, an entertainment journalist whose celebrity interviews and music reviews run in a variety of regional LGBTQ+ and mainstream publications and websites. His movie review column called Screensaver can be found in South Florida Gay News, San Francisco's Bay Area Reporter, RottenTomatoes.com, and so much more. Hey, Gregg.
Happy National Potato Chip Day. We are the reporters for Queer News Tonight, and this evening we begin with the queer headlines. The LGBTQ plus community in South Florida and across America is diverse. Our community across the world is vast. And here are the bullet points of the Queer News for today, 3/14. It's Pie Day.
Oh, I knew you couldn't let that go.
Love pie.
I love apple pie.
Pie too. Yeah,
And
Blaze.
I call some other things pie too. So.
Blaze pizza today is $3.14. All right, we begin by queering up South Florida, and this is a great story. Disney's dramatic reversal on Don't Say Gay has DeSantis declaring war on woke. Watch this.
And when you have companies that have made a fortune off being family friendly and catering to families and young kids, they should understand that parents of young kids do not want this injected into their kids' kindergarten classroom. They do not want their first graders to go and being told that they can choose an opposite gender. That is not appropriate for those kids. And so if you're family friendly, understand the parents who are actually raising families want to have their rights respected. And I also think that if you have companies like a Disney that are going to say and criticize parents' rights, they're going to criticize the fact that we don't want transgenderism in kindergarten and first grade classrooms, if that's the hill that they're going to die on, then how do they possibly explain lining their pockets with their relationship from the Communist Party of China? Because that's what they do, and they make a fortune, and they don't say a word about the really brutal practices that you see over there at the hands of the CCP. And so in Florida, our policy is going to be based on the best interest of Florida citizens, not on the musing of woke corporations.
Wow. Wow. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and his Lieutenant Governor Jeanette Nunez are on attack, as you just heard there. And their current target is the largest single-site employer and one of the largest sources of tax revenue in the state of Florida, Disney. After protests outside the Orlando theme parks last week, CEO Bob Chapek issued a lukewarm statement of support for the LGBTQ plus community and offered to donate $5 million to charity. When the HRC rejected the donation, saying that Disney needed to do better since they had donated to the sponsors of the bill, Chapek paused all political donations in the state. In a statement, he said, quote, "It is clear that this is not just an issue about a bill in Florida, but instead yet another challenge to basic human rights. You needed me to be a stronger ally in the fight for equal rights, and I let you down. I'm sorry." End quote. Watch this.
These woke CEOs are worried about a parental rights bill. Meanwhile, they will never criticize China for all that it is doing on human rights and making sure this fentanyl works its way into the United States that comes out of China. That's something to be morally outraged by.
Indeed, and these feckless CEOs of these woke corporations, they're too busy bowing down to the altar of the CCP. They will not fight, and they will simply come back. They will criticize our legislation. They will try to bully us like the NCAA did, like Disney's doing. How dare they? They have no right to criticize the legislation by duly elected legislators that are passing common sense legislation to criticize and to threaten. Governor DeSantis and I won't stand for it, and we're proud. In the free state of Florida, we put parents and their rights first.
Can I just jump in immediately and go, you know, our Lieutenant Governor's observation is very interesting. Disney's trying to bully her and bully them. Exactly what Don't Say Gay does in the schools. Exactly the exact same thing.
And she also says Disney doesn't have the right to do. No, yes, you do have the right. Criticizing is a right of America.
It's called free speech.
But you know where they don't? In China. And like that is like the irony of all of this.
Right? And this is all classic distraction.
Gaslighting.
Like look over here. Look over here. Yeah. Look at China. Look at China. Look at fentanyl. Fentanyl?
Yeah.
She is on fentanyl.
No, she must be.
And I wish she was on more of it.
And can you imagine what it would be like to be one of Governor Death Sentence's spawn and having your father going to war with Disney?
Oh my God.
I mean, hello, how embarrassing for, well, the children probably don't have any shame.
So let's talk about Disney, though. Is it too little, too late? What do you guys think? Is $5 million? I mean, you know, so HRC said no to the $5 million, okay? And, you know, they're saying that they will do more. What do you think will happen?
You know, the answer to that question, in my opinion, is who cares about the $5 million? Of course, HRC will like to accept it. They, at this hour, have not announced whether they will or not, based on Disney's reversal. However, Disney's words, Chapek's reversal, is worth hundreds of millions of dollars because the largest employer in Florida said we were wrong in how we did it. And you know, I think it's super interesting. It took a bunch of students from South Florida to get on a bus and go up and protest at the gates of Walt Disney World to say, wait, you can't make this stand against us. And it took thousands of employees, many of which were gay. It's the largest gay employer in the world to say, wait, you can't do this. You need to stand up for us. Yeah. And the end conclusion is they did. It's worth millions and millions and millions of dollars of support.
I'm with you, and I agree with that. And we have to make room for people to make mistakes, and but also, you know, you could have done this 2 weeks ago.
It took too long.
When the legislature
exactly are we okay with the crumbs that they're giving us?
Right.
That's how I feel right now.
That's
you know,
right.
and let's give a big shout out to Scott Gavin. Excuse me. Gavin. I mean, and him, part of Safe Schools. They were the ones who took all the kids up there for the protests and in Tallahassee and at Disney as well. And you know, I mean, I was gonna say poor DeSantis. Oh my God, let me put those words back in my mouth. But you can tell that he's frazzled. You know, or he's just like transgenderism in 3rd grade. Blah blah blah. I'm like, what are you talking about, sir?
Well, and his little Trump hands were flapping all around, and that stuff that was those creatures that were surrounding him at that conference. I mean, what was that?
You know what really disappoints me? My very good friend Laura Ingraham. She's been ambushed here, and she's going to stick to this line all through this fight, and it's going to get worse and worse and worse. This is like a little tiny snowball at the top of the mountain that's going to start rolling down the mountain. And it got about 100 feet down from the top of the mountain, and then Disney picked it up and said, okay, wait, let's help this along.
Right.
And that's what's happening. And Laura, you're going to be sitting on the wrong side of history, and Nunes, our lieutenant governor, is going to be sitting on the wrong side of history. And DeSantis, when you run for president of the United States, I guarantee what we just showed is going to appear in campaign ad after campaign ad after campaign ad. You compared Florida and your largest employer to China. Yep. Oh boy, dude, are you going to be in trouble in 2024?
Yes, he is. Well, let's say gay in the movies and queer up some entertainment. Yeah. Here are 7 queer movies coming out this spring that you must see. Spring is in the air and thoughts turn to love. Or not. LGBTQ plus films and filmmakers have often been glossed over and not given the green light at all, but it seems things are changing and we are finally getting some of that spring love. Here are 7 films with queer themes, characters, or creators. Number 7, Everything, Everywhere, All at Once. Evelyn is having problems with her taxes, and an evil taking over the multiverse. This film looks like a lot of fun, and one of the main characters is queer. Number 6, You Are Not My Mother, or as so many stepchildren say, You Are Not My Mother! Haven't we all said it? Well, in this Irish thriller by queer filmmaker Kate Dolan, it appears to be true. Number 5, Better Nate Than Ever. From Tim Federle, the creator of High School Musical, the series, Better Nate Than Ever follows 13-year-old Nate and his friend Libby as they sneak to NYC to audition for a Broadway play. Number 4, We're All Going to the World's Fair, created by non-binary filmmaker Jane Sjoberg, follows a girl as she gets sucked into the online horror game. Number 3, Firebird. Based on a true story, this film follows a Cold War-era soldier and his forbidden gay love affair with a Soviet fighter pilot at a Soviet air base. Put my flaps down. Number 2, L'Amour d'Anaïs. When Anaïs meets Daniel and his wife, Emily, Daniel falls for Anaïs, while she falls for Emily. And number 1, the movie that everybody's going to see, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Marvel finally brings a queer superhero to the big screen with the debut of lesbian character America Chavez. What queer movies or movies with queer themes are you excited to see? Let us know in the comments on Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube.
So for all the people out there that are like, oh, we don't see us represented, look at these films. Go support them. They look amazing. I want to go see Les Amours of Anise, of course, you know, the lesbian thriller.
And Better Nate Than Ever is a Disney film. So now that's important to know. And I've actually seen one of these movies. I saw the World's Fair movie, and I'm not permitted to say anything, but my review will be running on April 15th in SFGN.
Everybody dies at the end.
Is it good? or bad?
I'm not really permitted
not
to
allowed.
say.
He can't say, which means we don't know. I can never read him.
It's
very
bad.
difficult, you know.
It's the creator of
I'm
High School
staring at you
Musical.
intensely. All right, is
No, leave him alone now. How about
Films that are embargoed are generally ungood.
Oh, it's like
Yeah.
Didn't say.
It's like, well, how about Fireball?
I'll say it.
Al?
I watched Fire. Did you see Firebird?
No, I haven't.
Oh,
Looks
Firebird.
good. It looks good.
Firebird is excellent. I met the cast in the fall. I was shocked how good it was because I was not expecting it to be good. It's about an Air Force fighter pilot in Russia who is he's married and secretly has an affair with another soldier. And it's a beautiful story. And very apropos right now with what's going on in the world, and it's to be seen. And I point out one of the things that's exciting about this story, and I congratulate productions because all of the support of John in the story was really good visually. It's exciting to me because I saw that film at the Outshine Film Festival, and our LGBTQ film festivals like Outshine get product faster and in a more important way than what you can see in streaming platforms often. And so that's really great. And I remind everybody, Outshine Film Festival begins next month in Miami.
Coming up.
Yeah.
Next, we queer up entertainment. Miami's Julia on being the first lesbian on The Real Housewives. After being off the air for nearly a decade, The Real Housewives of Miami returned last season with season 4. Now that the season is over, Julia Lemigova sat down for an interview with The List where she discussed being the first openly lesbian cast member on Housewives. She discussed how she wants to use her platform, saying, quote, I do want to do more for the LGBTQ plus community because I realize how amazing it is to help other people and something that I realize I could probably do. I want to do more. I want to learn more about that, end quote.
Well, Julia was delightful when I interviewed her for The Mirror.
Oh, how cute.
So this is my interview with her, and it's in the current issue of The Mirror. And she's a doll, and she's really sweet, and she's so tall.
Very tall.
Well, she was a beauty pageant
right.
contestant. So she's very tall.
And she's married to Martina.
Martina, yeah.
Who
Martina
is also not short.
Navratilova.
No.
Yeah, who is not, right?
I'm going to out myself. I have never seen any Housewives anything.
Wow.
Should I be watching?
Well, but we like
the
drama.
Miami one is
Do you
really.
like drama, dude?
Do you like drama?
I mean, in my life. No, I'm kidding. Untrue.
Well, this is the first time I watched one for this interview, and it was eye-opening, but it was nice to see, the area represented, and there's just a scene
It is.
at Wynwood Pride, so that was kind of a fun thing to see.
Well, and I love Martina, and she's an artist now, right? And Julia was doing like an art show for her down in Miami, which I thought was wonderful. I wanted to see more LGBTQ out of her, At the Wynwood Festival, it was the other person, it was another housewife that was getting an award and was being acknowledged. It wasn't Julia. So it was like I kept on waiting for her to do something with our community. I really hope that she's able to.
Hey, I'm curious. By the way, you're not the only lesbian clearly at the table. Do you think that there's much of a difference in the Housewives franchise to have the first lesbian? Does it make any difference? Orange County is just in terms of the personalities that are involved, and that's intentional.
Sorry, Orange County.
Yeah, and it's intentional.
He watches. That's why.
Does it make any difference to have a lesbian housewife?
Of course it does, because there are lesbian housewives. We do exist, right? So I'm not one of them. Which Teresa, get another job so I can stay home. Anyway, but a representation matters, right? I want to see myself. And when they first showed us these housewives, I was super excited. Like Mr. Capo, I had never seen a housewife franchise before, but I started watching this one just for Julia because she's a lesbian.
Yeah, well,
that got me.
When you think about the audience for that show is probably gay men
Very gay.
And straight women, right?
Yeah.
And so for straight women to see this married lesbian couple, I think is pretty important.
And a gay man created it.
Right.
Andy Cohen
Yeah.
developed this franchise almost 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there are others in other Housewives too. I think I don't know if it's the OC or it might be Atlanta, but there's other lesbian representation or non-binary representation in other casts as well. This is the first time that it's out in Miami, believe it or not, and I think she's a wonderful representation.
That's awesome to hear.
I'm holding out for the Real Housewives of Yeehaw Junction.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, I don't think they dress the same.
Do you know what Yeehaw Junction is?
I think that's where I was. I was in Virginia over the weekend. Wasn't I close to there?
You were close. It's
right under Orlando.
Yes, it was a television show.
Oh, I was in Massanutten, Virginia. Guess what happens in
Where?
Massanutten? Nothing.
Massanutten.
Nothing. And I told the lady that she didn't think it was funny.
Well, we thought it was funny.
Well, thank you.
We're laughing.
Yeah, I'm from Virginia. Yeah,
Sorry, I can see it there. I see it now. Next, we report on our partnership with Sunshine Cathedral, the world's largest queer church here in Fort Lauderdale. We're broadcasting from our permanent set here at Sunshine and supporting that partnership. Happening Out Television Network broadcasts the largest LGBTQ plus religious live broadcast in the world, as more than 30,000 watch every Sunday at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Watch this.
My name is Gordon Woodworth III. I'm a non-binary pagan person from South Florida, an employee of Broward House, and Sunshine Cathedral is my queer church.
Wow.
Well, we finished tonight's queer news headlines with a segment we call LGBTQ plus Flash News.
Let's do it. LGBTQ plus Flash News. Texas hate preacher tells kids, I can't wait for gay people to go to hell. Watch this.
Now you want to know something? This is exactly what God wants in the New Testament. Did you realize that? Yeah. Because you know what? Fornicators aren't welcome in the church. So if there's a whore, she's supposed to be thrown out until she repents and gets back in. And then on top of that, the sodomites never allowed in for any vow. Oh, I promise I'm saved. Nope, get away. I love the Lord. No, you don't. Get away from me. Love is love. No, there's no promise you could make. There's nothing you can say. You're never welcome. Go away. Amen. Yeah. I just can't wait until you just go to hell. Right. Because there's no place for them.
So sorry you had to hear that. Queer News Tonight recently reported that the Steadfast Bible Church in Hurst, Texas was facing eviction due to Pastor Jonathan Shelley's calls for violence against the LGBTQ plus community. They have since moved to the Blueprint Shopping Plaza, and with their new home comes the same old hatred. In a video, as we saw, right, Shelley says the sodomites will never be allowed in the church, saying, quote, love is love. No, there's no promise you can make. There's nothing you can say. You're never welcome. Go away. I just can't wait until you just go to hell, end quote. Texas isn't known as a very welcoming place for the LGBT communities at times, and as we have reported, the governor recently called on the state family resources to investigate parents allowing their teens to transition as abuse. Luckily, a judge has issued an injunction against that. This is hate speech. That when we talk about what's allowed to be said to children, this is what needs to be banned, and this is the kind of work that is harming, is damaging, and violent. This is violence.
It's disturbing to watch all of those children sitting in front of him, and to think Texas, and especially Governor Abbott, thinks that parents that are providing health care to their trans children justifies child abuse, and then you watch that moment. And oh, by the way, Steadfast is very well known in activist circles. You know, you got some problems when you've been thrown out, you're in a shopping center, and you're using a pop-up fold-up table as your altar. You got some problems.
Sir, you're disgusting for your hate speech, and you are the one that'll be going to hell. But don't worry, there's a Chick-fil-A there.
Yeah, I mean, it's terrible words. Like I said, they have been evicted, and I can't even tell that they're in a mall. They look like they're at the Starlight Ballroom and Conference area
in Hialeah.
In Hialeah, yeah.
Sorry, Hialeah.
Hey, Hialeah.
He's just bitter because his drag persona, Jonathan Shelley Winters, didn't make the cut for the next season of Drag Race. LGBTQ plus flash news. Jaw-dropping ad campaign celebrates trans athletes and joy of youth sports. Watch this.
Have you ever met a transgender kid?
There is no atmosphere that is the same as playing a sport with your team.
When you're playing a sport, it's not just about you. It's about what you can do as a team or as a group.
Most of what I coach are team sports, and it's not about being perfect. It's about growing as an individual and growing as a team member. And where in that does gender identity come in?
I want to even be a coach someday, just to help other kids get to where they want to be.
We're a team.
The group Gender Cool has released a new campaign called Play It Out, meant to educate people on the issue of transgender youth in sports. The founder of Gender Cool, Jen Grosshandler, is a trans advocate and the parent of a transgender teen. She said, quote, "Communities everywhere deserve the facts around a conversation that is in need of clarity. When folks have a chance to spend time with our kids, they often come to the same conclusion. Our kids play sports to be part of a community and have fun with their friends. All kids belong in sports. It's that simple. Yay, trans sports ball."
Sports ball.
Sports ball.
I love this so much. This commercial makes me so happy. Our season opener for our LGBTQ softball league started yesterday, and it's always about community. It's always about lifting each other up, and what that means as a child, as a young person, is everything.
Jen Grosshandler, this director, congratulations to you. You get the attention of Queer News Tonight. You're doing such a good job, which I think is great. And Gender Cool, what an awesome name of the organization. Congratulations on this ad.
I hope they promote the hell out of this commercial. I hope that they play it nationally everywhere, okay? Take a couple of those pharma commercials off and put some more of this so the white people in Massanutten, Virginia see this commercial.
I love it. I'm not against criminal hacking, but if someone is going to criminally hack, let's take this video and play it on the website of the Steadfast Church in Texas.
Yeah, that would be nice.
LGBTQ.
Wait, I'm sorry. That assumes that they have a broadcast, which they, I'm quite sure do.
LGBTQ plus flash news. I love this. Jerry Falwell Jr. sex scandal to hit the screen. Hello, pool boys. Journalist Gabe Sherman's Vanity Fair expose on Jerry Falwell Jr. and his wife Becky is set to be made into a scripted show. Read that article. It's a long read, but oh, it's so wonderful. Michael London, who is producing the series alongside Shannon Golding, said, quote, Gabe Sherman is setting out to tell a story of a great American family business where the business is religion. It's an untold story with a larger-than-life cast of characters amassing vast power and vaster fortunes. Yes, there's a sex scandal, one that consumed the life of Jerry Jr. and his wife Becky. But what's most surprising is the insight and empathy that Gabe brings to their very human struggle to be true to themselves. End quote. And I have some fantasy casting I'd like to do for this. I'd like Falwell Jr. to be played by Kirk Cameron.
What?
I would like his wife Becky to be played by Kirk's sister Candace, and the pool boy to be played by former President Donald J. Trump.
Ooh,
wow! I'm not watching
now
that.
Out. Tuning out.
Falwell fell well and will continue to fall.
There's something about this. It feels like when it's scripted. It already felt scripted in so many ways. Because it's such a. I'm looking forward to reading to watching this. Yeah.
You know, I have PTSD over this. Mm-hmm. Jerry Falwell, the creator of The Moral Majority in 1979, in the 1980s and the 1990s was public enemy number one for me because he told me over and over and over again how worthless my life was. Who would have thought that his son, who is almost exactly my age, was going through in the backseat of some car with some boy at the exact same time?
Yeah.
His wife's name is Becky? Did nobody catch that? And they got hotter actors than the people really are. You guys should be happy about that one.
You're
Well, Becky went to Liberty University after all. You know, not far from where were you?
Massanutten.
Massanutten.
Where nothing happens.
Because Liberty's in Lynchburg. It was only about an hour from where you're at.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
LGBTQ plus flash news. Star Wars. Luke Skywalker. Mark Hamill says gay. A lot. May the force be with him. Many celebrities have joined the discussion about Florida's Parental Rights and Education Act, or as opponents call it, Don't Say Gay. One of our favorites is the actor who portrayed Luke Skywalker in the epic Star Wars movies, as well as voiced the Joker in the animated Batman films. I guess you guys didn't know that, huh? Mark Hamill, he decided to hashtag say gay anyway, and say it 70 times. I love you, Mark Hamill. That's why I named my dog after you. I did. My dog's name is Luke, after Luke Skywalker.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew it was Luke, but I didn't know that's fine.
You now have to pay Disney 75 cents for it.
And they will come after you for
Anytime.
copyright violation.
Great. Now the force is woke. DeSantis is not going to be happy about this.
But the force is strong with this one.
Yes.
Is that your Mark? I thank you to Mark Hamill, and thanks to everyone who's fighting this fight. And I just a quick plug to the Stonewall. I'm wearing a button. I'm touching it that says "Say Gay." That's by the Stonewall National Museum and Archives. They're a great local LGBTQ archive. Support them and the great work they're doing and telling us to continue saying gay.
You know, first off, thank you for telling us what you were touching, because I thought you were touching yourself all through this show. You know, Mark Hamill does us all a favor. He pokes in the eye all of the incredibly crazy radical right by just going gay, 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 gay. Mark Hamill, thank you very much.
So that is today's news for the LGBTQ plus community on the world's first and only daily LGBTQ plus evening news show. Is our community important to you?
You know that it is, so help us by liking and subscribing, ringing the bell for updates, and share the news with your friends and family.
So also post this broadcast in the many groups you're a member of. Tonight's stories about our community deserve the attention of your family and friends.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ plus digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines. We need your support.
And if our community is to grow, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. It creates allies. This is the only place in the world that tells these type of LGBTQ plus stories in motion and sound. And that is the passion of the Happening Out Television Network and Queer News Tonight. I'm your anchor, Al Ferguson, and on behalf of these LGBTQ plus reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including FayWhat, John Hayden, Dr. Julio Capo Jr., and Gregg Shapiro. We will see you daily at 8 p.m. But before we end our show, we have one final story.
Let's queer up gay culture. LGBTQ plus banned book club, The Breakaways with Cathy G. Johnson. Across the country, states are banning books with LGBTQ plus content. That's why Queer News Tonight is starting a book club. So excited. The LGBTQ plus banned book club. Tonight, we present a special interview with Cathy G. Johnson, author of the banned book, The Breakaways. Watch this.
Well, up next, let's welcome author and artist Cathy G. Johnson. Cathy is coming to us tonight from Providence, Rhode Island, where she makes comics, drawings, prints, and writes books about youth, confrontation, and sincerity. She draws inspiration from her own life and community. Cathy's first graphic novel, Jeremiah, debuted in 2013. Her second book, Gorgeous, was published in 2016. And her most recently banned book, The Breakaways, yes, I said banned book, was released in 2019. In addition to her writing and artwork, she is also an educator and scholar, teaching various art classes and workshops throughout New England and North America. Cathy has been teaching since 2012 and earned her master's degree in teaching and learning in art and design from the Rhode Island School of Design in 2017. To our delight, she is going to share her experiences courses and research on her education website that she participates in, comicarted.com. And she also is a co-host, a scholarship podcast where they discuss comics in historical and educational context called Drawing a Dialogue. We're very happy to have with us tonight Cathy Johnson. Good evening, Cathy.
Hi, Al.
Well, we're excited. First off, you're a member of the LGBTQ plus community. We get that out there. You identify as queer and trans, and it's a time for both being trans and it is a time to in being an author, and it's an interesting moment, an intersection of our LGBTQ world. Let's begin with the books that you've written. Tell us a little bit, the 3 books that you've written, tell us a little bit about the experience of why you do it and how you represent in our community. What do you pursue in your writing?
So I have been interested in comic books since I was a child. I love what comic books are able to communicate, and the rich possibilities of using words and images. As you said, like my master's degree is in the educational benefits of comics. I think comics can achieve a lot, and I think it's a very accessible medium as well. Like you just need to pick it up and start reading. I enjoy making comic books for all sorts of audiences, of all sorts of life experiences, and that does include LGBTQ people.
The 3 books that you've done, I'm curious in terms of your interest in comics. We have reported at Queer News Tonight a lot of what is going on at DC and Marvel and at Disney in terms of representation in comics and the growing lesbian reflection and gay and even trans. What do you think about what's going on in mainstream comic work in America? Is it a good thing? Have you been happy about what you've seen?
So I actually work in the independent comics world where it's more art focused and people get to express whatever they want to express. And then that differs from mainstream where you have a larger market and you have a larger audience. And there's a lot more pressure on making your work accessible to a broader audience, right? And so what we have seen is that there's a lot more queer YA books for young adults and for teenagers. And my book, The BREAKAWAYS, is actually for middle schoolers. So that is a new audience for these books.
Do you have a different response from middle school young readers, different that identify as heterosexual versus in LGBTQ plus? Do they react differently to the material you put in front of them?
I think it's middle school is a time of self-discovery, right? So it's a time of finding out who you are, of exploring different identities. It's a time of questioning. So when I bring my books, oftentimes I'll have kids who are excited, and who knows how they identify, because that's a time of self-discovery, really. I mean, that's what middle school is all about. So I've had kids from all experiences who are excited to read my books.
Yeah, that sounds great. Of course, the elephant in the room is what we're watching. You know, we're broadcasting this interview. I'm in Florida, and we are in full-on battle here in Florida from the LGBTQ community with Tallahassee over the Woke Act, and of course, Don't Say Gay. And next will be books. In focusing what can be touched in schools, middle schools, elementary, high school, etc. I'm curious about what you think is going on and what has gone on for the trans community. Let's start there. Over what we've watched in the last a couple of years. President Biden came and becomes president, and we thought, well, everything's going to change now. And it actually seems like today things are even a little rougher. What do you think about, from your seat and your experience, and as an author and trans in the LGBTQ community, what do you think about the state of affairs that we're watching in America?
Well, I find it very upsetting. Right? I think I want rights. I want equal rights for everyone. I want kids to be able to express themselves and get access to whatever they need.
Upsetting, is it? I heard that you have been asked, because of all of the controversy that's been going on in representation from trans, what the Republicans have framed over the issue, and content in books, and what we have seen, that you have shied away from interviews from mainstream media. Is that correct?
Yes, I have turned down a lot of interviews.
Yeah.
It seems like...
No, please. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
It seems like there is a lot of attention given to the book being banned, but there isn't a lot of attention onto the sort of larger macrocosm of what is happening. Like, the book itself isn't the problem. The problem is the larger the larger cultural shift that's happening, right? And so I have been saying no to a lot of interviews because it seems like they want to sensationalize the book being banned, and what we would need to be focusing on is why.
Yeah. Well, help us understand. I think I have a fundamental understanding of my question, but help all of us, me and our listeners, help us understand from your perspective, why is this happening? Why do you think it's actually getting worse for us? Donald Trump's no longer president of the United States, but the shadow of the former president is long and deep. DeSantis here in Florida, and multiple senators, McCarthy in the House, the minority leader. Why is it happening? From your seat, why do you think it is happening?
I mean, I think there's a sort of a fear of the unknown. I think there's like a fear of, and then wanting to sort of control what's happening in schools and what people think is happening. So like the book is being banned in schools, and it's because there's a transgender character in the book. And it seems like that this is a conversation that parents theoretically don't want to be having with their kids, but there are transgender kids who need to be having these conversations. Yeah. And everyone needs to be. No, everyone needs to be, because everyone is going to be occupying the same world with each other. So we all need to understand each other.
The book that you're referring to, I believe, with the trans character is The Breakaways. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah, that's your 2019 book. And help us understand, help the LGBTQ community understand what's occurring. Because the character, or because there is a trans character in the book, the response is to ban the book in schools, in some schools, just because of the mere existence of trans. Do I have that correct?
Yeah, and I think there's a sort of as an educator, and an author, I think there's sort of a fundamental misunderstanding on what being transgender is. It's not inherently inappropriate for a younger age. Like, people being transgender isn't inherently inappropriate, as we all know. But I think there's sort of a misunderstanding and bigotry that sort of evolves from that misunderstanding in what it means to be transgender.
When we get into conversations about people making decisions about banning books, I think about many movies where I have seen this moment. By the way, go back and watch Footloose. It's a great movie. I read an article in the Houston Chronicle talking about a school district in Texas, Spring Branch, that banned the novel, and their justification was that it was inappropriate for the students in the school or schools where they banned it. But I want to make sure that I'm clear again. What they're saying is inappropriate for the students is the mere existence of a transgender character, not because of actions, not because of intention, not because of any other adjectives or definitions, just mere existence. Do I have that correct?
Yes.
Well, let's go back to your why question again on why you've avoided so many of the mainstream interviews focusing on it. The why then is just a rejection of existence? Do you think that's what's occurring?
I think there's sort of wanting this desire to justify their bigotry, right? So there's sort of a misunderstanding of like visual literacy problems, right? Where they hear about this book and then they sort of imagine how horrible it is. And I think this happens to all books that are banned and films that are banned, right? Where it's just like, it could be a very short and simple scene. I mean, this is gay history, right? There could be a very small scene in reference to something, and that just gets blown out of proportion, right? When it is just part of life, and it should be in our art. Life should be an art, right?
I read an editorial recently. I'm curious. I am going to summarize it for you, but I'm just curious on your reaction as a person, a trans person in the LGBTQ community, and a writer, author that has now had a book banned in school. I read an editorial that said, it's an interesting intersection with 1959, and that there were books that had black prominent characters in them that certain states in the Union said were inappropriate for white students in schools to read, and they justified book bans. It is hard to imagine that a book could be, critical race theory is a different argument. It is hard to imagine a book like yours that focused on 5 or 6 black 6th to 8th graders interacting with each other would be banned simply because they were black, and that we're watching what we went through in 1958 and 1959 all over again. What's your reaction of that intersection of making the comparison to how we handled race 50 and 60 years ago and how we're handling LGBT and trans today?
Well, intersectionality is real, right? So there are black trans people who have their lived experiences. And I think, I think, and then the books are also being banned for what is supposedly critical race theory, when really they're just children's books that have black characters in them by black authors. I think it's difficult to compare oppressions, right? I think we need to have solidarity with everyone.
Cathy, I'm curious, with what has happened in the last 12 months, this book came out in 2019 and banned in some school districts now. Does it affect your writing process, your creative process? Does it chill your desire to incorporate trans or other LGBT characters in stories that you might be developing? Does it have any kind of adverse effect in your decision making of your writing?
I want to represent all people and all kids in my books, and that is always going to include trans characters and gay characters.
So does that mean more books are coming that are going to include those characters?
Yes. I'm not going to stop.
Yeah. Okay. So you're defiant there. I'm also curious in terms of the labeling. You know, we're talking about this branding image coming from Queer News Tonight and the LGBTQ community. We're after all Queer News Tonight, of talking about an LGBTQ book club. You know, we watched what Oprah does. We watch what Jenna Bush does on the Today Show. We participate and help promote LGBT themes at the Miami Book Fair. New Orleans is getting ready to begin, etc. And we're talking about classifying an LGBTQ book club and put banned in front of it. And we've talked about that very specifically because of the marketing, of incendiary marketing of the banned LGBTQ book club. And we've had conversation about that to illustrate where we are in large swaths of America, of the way they think about books and their free inclination to ban them. What do you think about that, of the idea of having a banned LGBTQ book club? It's incendiary. Do you think it is the kind of message we want to represent in LGBT, or do you disagree with that?
I mean, I think it's interesting. So censorship is also kind of insidious, right? So there's censorship in just the fact something might not get published in order to be banned. So I think I think in order to get banned, you need to have given opportunities, right? So I almost think that I'd rather have these books not banned.
And we would like to be able to say gay in schools in Florida, but our fight is long and vast. I hear you loud and clear, Cathy. I'm curious, what are you working on now? What are you going to be working on next?
I'm working on a young adult graphic novel right now. I also have a few more pitches in the hopper if any publishers are watching and want to talk to me.
Yeah. Okay. And any idea in terms of a timeline of developing that?
Oh boy, graphic novels take a really long time. Probably 2025.
Oh, wow. Okay. All right. You do know this is 2022, right? You do know.
Yes, I do know.
Yeah. I'm curious, Cathy, I really do appreciate you being able to talk to us. You have a very interesting seat, which is why mainstream media has pursued you. You're in two different buckets, really three different buckets, because you represent LGBT, you represent strongly the T in our acronym, and then you're a writer who has been banned. So I can understand why they would pursue you. I appreciate you doing this interview. It helps our LGBTQ community understand what you face, and that's what you're doing here. So you're helping all of us. How, that being said, with what you face and how difficult it is to be a writer in America in 2022, especially if you're in those buckets, how do you not get discouraged with what you face? You're going to be talking to a lot of transgender people that'll watch this interview that have a tough time getting up out of bed in the morning with the way that they're discriminated against or hated on, or even the risk of violence or even murder against them. How do you overcome the kinds of rejection that you face? What helps you just move on?
My queer siblings, right? We're a family. Finding people who you can have solidarity with, finding your neighbors, finding your community. We all have support for each other. And in terms of writing, there's all sorts of, you can self-publish, there's all sorts of stuff where you can get your voice out there without being told no.
And speaking of that, you can also come on to Queer News Tonight and talk about your books. Where do we find you? Let's make sure that we help. Let's bypass that school district in Texas and others. And where do we find you, and how do we go about doing it?
Well, you can find you can ask for my book, The Breakaways. It's available from any independent bookstore, also the big chains, but let's go independent. Okay. And you can just ask them and they'll order it.
Okay. And can you go on to Amazon? I know that's the ultimate big one. But
it is on Amazon.
Yeah, okay, exactly. All right. Well, we wish you all the luck, Cathy. It's a perilous time. But I know people watching this interview are going to come away with a representative from the LGBTQ plus community that is trans, that is a writer, that has faced already book bans and is positive and smiles as much as you do. It's very encouraging in terms of where we are, because we will be able to overcome. We just must stay in the fight. And that's what you're doing. Cathy Jensen, thank you very much for being with us at Queer News Tonight.
Thank you so much, Al.
LGBTQ plus news is vital for our community and for the broader world as a whole. We have enough enemies at Fox News. Tucker, Sean, and Laura are loud. We need passionate allies. Happening Out television network, Queer News Tonight, and It's Happening Out are literally out of the closet and into the headlines. Our community needs your support. Like this broadcast and subscribe now to ensure